Okay.
Hi, we're sorry about that.
Right, no one's watching this one just yet. Oh, right. So I'm going to wait for the view count to go up, and I'm just going to type a message on here. So
where are you looking?
We have started a new live session. Sorry about that. Top left, 2 people are watching.
2 people are watching. 11 people are watching. We're definitely back.
Okay. So you won't have to read tonight.
I hope you can all hear us. If you can't, can somebody type and let us know? So we've got a message here from Carla. It says, I'm giving birth at the Horton and was wondering if my midwife will be there for the birth or just whoever is on shift. I think it will depend who is on call and what time of day it is, Carla. And that's something to discuss with your community midwife. Yvonne Connolly, sorry I missed, what level is the postnatal ward? If you are in for 6 hours before the checks, where will you be taken? And do partners have to go home? Okay, so if you're staying in, you may go to level 7 or to level 5, Yvonne. And what we were saying is that, if you're going to go home straight from delivery suite, we will try and come and do your baby's physical examination on delivery suite. We also do them on level 5 and level 7. So it will depend whereabouts in the building you are. But if you are on either level 5 or level 7, then your partner will have to go. And I know on Sunday I was doing the NIPE checks and there was a partner waiting out in the car until the baby had been done.
So I've copied and pasted some questions.
Okay.
I'm going to bring this video up as well.
So
I think we were just saying about the breastfeeding. I think that's what we finished the last video, was the support with the breastfeeding. So I'll just quickly go back over that. That was a question about support. I don't know who it was from, but anyway. So your delivery midwives and midwife who looked after you in labour will support you for the first feed. And then going forwards, whoever you are on the ward, we have support workers and midwives who will all be able to give you breastfeeding support. And like I said earlier as well, the infant feeding team are currently doing like day on calls for the whole unit. So if there are feeding problems in the day, then we'll have the specialists who are around who will be able to come speak to you as well. And you probably saw them in the video yesterday. There was another question as well. When do we see the midwives at home now with reduced appointments and how much? You probably know more about that than I do.
So, your midwife, the day after you come home from hospital, will telephone you to see how things are going and what support you need. Most postnatal care is now being done over the telephone or in community centres. So if you live in Headington, people are coming into the John Radcliffe for their postnatal checks. If you live in Witney or Carterton, you might be going into the Witney Community Hospital for your checks. So we're doing less face-to-face care, but there are always community midwives available to talk to you and to give you advice. And if you need that actual face-to-face care, then they will arrange to see you for you to come and see somebody.
Okay. Yeah. I will be giving birth at the Cotswold Birth Centre. Will they do the newborn checks there, or do I have to go to the GP? Yeah,
there's about 4 of the midwives who work at the Cotswold Birth Centre who are all NIPE trained. So we've got 72 hours. So I think you'll probably get one of the midwives who will be doing that for you.
And then I think Yvonne, the other question you had was, do partners have to go home if you're not transferred to the postnatal ward? Generally, I think in delivery suite,
no,
it's not too bad. I think it's if you're being transferred to another ward, that's where your partner's more likely to be asked to go. But just raise that with the midwife who's looking after you in labour, and they'll be able to give you a bit more specific advice as well on that.
What I think we both would want to reassure you is you're not going to push your baby out and 5 minutes later we're going to throw your birth partner out the door. You know, we're all human too, and we know that's a really special and important part of forming a family. And like Wendy Randall was saying to you the other day about the golden hour, and it's very important in the bonding and establishing feeding process. So we're not going to throw anyone out of the door, unnecessarily. So please rest assured. And once your partner does leave, like Wendy was saying, we have got you know, plenty of staff available at the moment, and we'll make sure you get that added support.
Okay, I think Carla's question you answered about will her midwife be there, or is it just whoever's on shift?
Yeah,
you covered that one. So we'll go to the new questions, hopefully.
See what else we've got.
So Leah, if I've not answered your question about breastfeeding, please just drop us another message. Amy, I will be giving birth at the Cotswold Birth Centre. We've done that one. Lydia, I'm due to have my next appointment with the midwife on 28th of April. Is it still going to happen? I don't think we could answer that, if I'm honest, Lydia. Really sorry.
No, Lydia, it depends on A, how pregnant you are and what check it is, and B, what your medical history is. So I'm going to say to you, the best thing for you to do would be to ring and speak to your midwife, because then she knows your history and can tell you, because it will be different depending on your circumstances.
In regards to registering baby's birth, is this something we can do at the hospital now? No, sorry, Katie, we have stopped the service at the moment for registering birth. And I believe going forwards as well. In terms
there are no registrations taking place at the moment. I've been on the register.gov site this morning to check what's happening. And at the moment, you don't need to register your baby's birth. You'll be able to do that once things get back to normal. So the 42 days doesn't apply. And if you go on the .gov website, you'll see there's a link there, so you can still claim your child benefit and universal credits.
Okay. Stephen, hi, thank you to all staff at the JR. Me and wife had baby girl last night. Congratulations, Stephen. Think as new dad, I need to start watching these. Well, if you have any questions, we are your midwives for now.
And you can play them back. The other thing I just wanted to mention when Wendy was saying, answering one of the feeding questions, is that we have heard this afternoon that some of the infant feeding team will now be doing a virtual session for you each week. So you'll be able to put your breastfeeding questions straight to them.
Okay, Yvonne, on the back of this question, I think it's to do with birth registration. If your baby doesn't have a name, do you still have 6 weeks to register, and do you come back to hospital or arrange to go to the registry
I think
office?
we've answered that, haven't we?
So there's no legal requirement at the moment.
No.
So you're fine, you've got loads of time to think of the name. Kat, if I'm being induced, will my partner be with me the whole time? I think generally at the moment, not the whole time, but certainly that's another conversation to have with the induction midwife, and they'll be able to give you some guidance on when the partner will be allowed to come. I think they're saying when you're in established labour. So that's generally where you'll get moved to Spires or delivery suite is when we'd say your partners to come in. But certainly have a conversation with your community midwife or your induction midwife about that. So Leah, when it's time to get discharged, are our partners allowed to come back into the hospital to meet us, or do they have to wait outside in the car, or do they have to wait outside the ward? Now, I have a confession to make. This is now my new favourite part of the job. So what we do is when we discharge a woman, we put the baby in the cot, we get donned up on level 1 PPE. So that's the apron, the gloves, the goggles and the mask. You just don't have to carry anything. We either put your stuff in a wheelchair and you push the wheelchair, or if you've got enough light bags, we'll carry them for you or put them around the cot. The cots have like bottom shelves on them. We then walk you down in the lift and down to the front entrance of maternity. So that's the first set of double doors. So where the car parking machines are. And that's generally where the partners or your lift is waiting. And I have to confess, it is a really lovely moment seeing that you guys reunite. I do like it's my new favourite part. And then we can help you put your stuff in the car, that sort of thing, and wave you off.
See, it's going back in time, because when I had my babies, midwives always walked you to the door. So I just wanted to, I think that's a good point to go on to talking about you going home, and to say about, you know, we said about making sure you've got something loose to wear, that you've got an outfit for your baby. The next thing I wanted to say is making sure you've got a car seat. We can't let babies go home without a car seat, but you need to make sure, this is for your partners, make sure they know how to fit that car seat in the car, and that you know how to follow the manufacturer's instructions to make sure your baby is safely strapped in. And what the latest, if you listen to the ambulance service, what they will tell you is that it doesn't matter how expensive your car seat is, as long as it has that British kite mark on, the safety standard mark, it will be fine. The most important thing is that you strap your baby in properly, and the mistake most people make is that they leave the straps loose. So just check that with your manufacturer's instructions, and it will be the most careful and gentle drive ever done.
You'll be very safe.
So when you get home, you're not going to be on your own. You can ring the maternity assessment unit if you're worried about something. You can ring your community group. You can ring Wallingford. There's always someone there overnight who will talk to you. So we're not going to leave you completely on your own. Now, once that baby's had its initial feed and slept, it's then going to have a period of 2 or 3 days of being quite unsettled, feeding little and often, and that's where you may find some of your expressed colostrum handy. Okay. We always say, and it's much easier to do at the moment, is sleep when your baby sleeps. Okay. And I don't mean just, nod off in front of This Morning on the telly, because that's not going to give you good sleep. If your baby has a couple of hours starts going down for a couple of hours in the afternoon, put your night clothes back on, turn all the phones off, get into bed and have a proper sleep. And you will find that you fare much better for keeping those resources topped up than if you keep struggling and going on. And it is easier to do at the moment because you haven't got any pressure to go out or to accept visitors. What was I going to say? Some people ask about when they can take their baby out. Now, obviously, we're all limited to when we can go out at the moment. But if you're going out for your hour's exercise, as long as you are practicing social distancing with your pram or your baby in a carrier, out however you choose, then it's perfectly fine for you to go out with your baby. I know we're expecting very high temperatures, 24, 25 at the weekend. Do you bear in mind babies sunburn just as easily as we do? So you either need your parasol or sun shield or some sun cream if that's the case. When baby's not settling very well, one of the things is because they're not used to being away from mum. And one of the things you might find really helpful is to mums either take the t-shirt off you've been wearing and wrap that around your Moses basket mattress, or you can get a muzzy and just stick it down in your bra for a while so it gets that nice mummy smell, and then spread that as a sheet across the bottom of the mattress. And sometimes that can be really helpful at getting babies to sleep. And the other thing I'm going to recommend you do before you take your babies home is, while you've got all this time on your hand, start doing some batch cooking and filling your freezer up, because we don't know how long we're going to be isolated for. So unfortunately, mum and mother-in-law and everybody who really wants to help can't bring all those extra meals round or have you round and cook for you. And there are going to be days where baby takes up a lot of your time. So it can be really handy just to have something nutritious to pull out the freezer that you can just bung in the oven and forget about, and you can both still have a nice healthy meal. Are there any questions on? Are you looking?
Yeah, there's quite a few. Should we
stop for a second and resume for questioning?
Resume for questioning. Okay, so Sophie Rose, you have a specific question about your baby's been diagnosed with mild dilated kidneys. So this is something we do see. You'll be given, or your baby will be given, an oral antibiotic called trimethoprim, which is to prevent any infections. That is really, really easy to give, so please don't worry about that. And we'll probably do that on level 5 when you come up. Then what will happen is, in the morning, generally the next morning after when you've given birth, you'll have a review by probably one of our nurse practitioners. That's the ANNP, so the Advanced Neonatal Nurse Practitioner, a bit of a tongue twister. And they'll be able to say what the process is then with regards to the scan. I believe some of them were being done as outpatients. That might have stopped, and they might be trying to do them as inpatients now. So I'm not sure on the location of the scan and the timing, but they're very, very good at organising that. and they will certainly communicate that to you, and then you'll be able to take the trimethoprim home and we'll show you how to give it, and it's really, really simple. And good luck with having your C-section on Monday, and we'll see you on level 5. Okay, so Yvonne, can you use a car seat you've used for a first baby 2 years ago?
As long as you know, Yvonne, that that car seat hasn't been involved in any accidents, absolutely you can. But remember to draw your straps and put your head hugger back in.
Okay. Do babies need a hat and a full-length bodysuit when leaving hospital, even if temp is above 25 degrees? That would be entirely dependent on how old your baby is. So if you do have an early discharge within the sort of 24-hour time frame, and that's the period where babies don't regulate their own temperature as well, then yes, it might be prudent to be a bit more well wrapped than you would if it was the next day. However, there is a little bit of common sense to be used in that as well, and feeling your baby's temperature by using your hand on their chest or their tummy. So depending on when you're being discharged, I would just ask your midwife who's looking after you to assess the environment, and they'll be able to give you more specific advice, but it's probably going to be more dependent on the age of your baby rather than the actual temperature of the environment.
And some babies after birth struggle just to maintain their temperature for a few hours. So it's wise to pack a hat anyway, so that if your baby needs a hat on for a few hours after delivery, you've got it there. And then if you need it for going home, you've got it there. If you don't, it can just sit in your bag. All right.
So Ali has a good question. Any tips on preparing a nearly 4-year-old on becoming a big sister? Where do we start?
Well, there's a book called Mummy Laid an Egg. I know there's lots of books out there, but it's one that I am particularly fond of, and I think gives a really good explanation. And I would just say, involving your 4-year-old in getting things ready for the baby, accepting that your 4-year-old probably will be, no matter how lovely they are, this is a big change for them. And you're going to be giving your attention to somebody else as well as them. So, you might have a few tears and tantrums, but having special things for them to do to make them feel, really special about everything and involved. Yeah.
Okay. So Leah, if we bring nappies that are too small, can we leave them behind as donation? So sadly, we're not currently accepting any donations of baby clothes or nappies for obvious reasons, but probably when this is all over, then yes, we would accept them. So I'm really sorry, but maybe a food bank might be accepting nappies. I think those
they
are
would.
still accepting
it.
Absolutely. So there are places that will definitely accept them, just not us at the moment. Hayley Black, please can I say a big hello and thank you to Amanda on the Lotus team for being so understanding and just an amazing lady. She is amazing. We love Amanda. Felt really supported through such an uncertain time. She's fantastic.
She's lovely.
Yeah, we'll definitely send her a message.
So I'm just aware of the time now. So I just wanted to get through a few more things about you going home, and then we'll try and answer a few more questions. So we've talked about what's going to happen with your midwife. So your midwife will ring you on the first day. They will then arrange your care, and we will care for you till your baby's between about 7 and 28 days old, at which point we hand your care on to a health visitor. And a health visitor is like a children's nurse. She will look after you until your baby goes to school, so until they're 5. So she will talk to you about all the things like baby clubs when they reopen, where you can go to get your baby weighed, what all the immunisations are for, when your baby needs developmental checks and those bits and pieces. So in the first couple of days when you get home, you are going to bleed quite heavily, okay, like a really heavy period. And that will settle down sort of over the first week, but you'll probably go on bleeding for 4 to 6 weeks, sort of like the tail end of a period. Some of you may have some stitches, and one of the things is really important to let the air circulate around there. So what I'm going to say to you is things like leggings are just a no-no. because you might end up, it will get all sweaty and you might end up with a nasty infection. So just let the air circulate around. And we give you a lot, I don't know if this will probably come out a bit backwards, won't it? But we do give you this lovely leaflet to go home with. And this talks you all the way through how to care for your stitches and look after yourself after you've had your baby. You're going to need to change your pads really regularly. And the other thing you can do to help promote healing with your stitches is start doing your pelvic floor exercises. And the NHS Squeeze app is really good for reminding you to do them and showing you how to do them. And exercising your pelvic floor, for any of you who don't know, is a bit like when you stop yourself from having a wee. If you're desperate to go and you've got 6 patients to see, you use your pelvic floor muscles to stop you having a wee. What that will do when you've got your stitches there is promote circulation, so help with the healing, and also help you to regain your bladder control, because you might find it's not quite as good after you've had your baby for a little while. On day 5, you will be invited into one of the community centres to have what's called your baby blood spot test. And this tests for several conditions. It's looking at for babies with cystic fibrosis. It's looking at how your baby's thyroid gland is working. And it's also looking at some inherited metabolic diseases, which can cause long-term problems if they're not treated early. So it involves, again, like Wendy was saying earlier about us taking blood to check the baby's blood sugar from the baby's heel. We do a simmer in the same place, take some blood to check these conditions for you. We also would recommend that when you go home, mums, if you're breastfeeding, carry on your vitamin D while you're breastfeeding. And also to have a look at the information we're giving you about supplementing your baby with some vitamin D. Okay, and you'll get all that information to take home with you. And the other thing I've been asked just to cover this afternoon is at 6 to 8 weeks. So once you've been discharged from our care, you will need a postnatal check with your GP, and they will probably arrange to do your baby's vaccines on the same afternoon. So as I was mentioning earlier about the GP in Farringdon, they have people, they can send them from the car, have them in for as little time as possible, vaccinate the baby. The mother then goes back to the car. The doctor then rings the mother. And they're going to want to know things like, they're going to do a physical examination of your tummy. If you need them to check down below, they won't, but that's not a routine check that they will do. They will check that your abdominal muscles are knitting back together nicely. But one of the main things they want to talk to you about is your mood and how you're coping, and to give you the support you need there. So that some of that conversation will take place over the phone in your car, and then you go in and see the doctor. Now, whether that's going to work the same at every surgery, I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that all GP surgeries are going to do what they feel is safest for you and your baby. The other thing just to mention is before you go home, we are now able to offer some contraception. Now, we're not saying you should all jump home and resume your sex lives within 24 hours. Everyone is very different and it's a very personal thing. I would definitely advise you wait at least until you've stopped bleeding and any perineal wound has healed. But if you want to, your midwife will discuss it with you before you leave. If you're having your baby at the JR, we can organise that for you before you go. If not, if you're delivering in one of our peripheral units, you will need to ring and speak to your GP, and they can probably talk to you over the phone again about that and leave prescriptions for the pill, or arrange for you to have an injection.
Cool. Should we do the questions?
Let's do the questions.
Okay. So Carla, I actually don't know the answer to this. This is a really good question. Will I get a health visitor if I already have a family nurse that visits me? That's an FNP, isn't it? So I'm not sure if they do the health visitor role as well.
Do you know, that's something I don't know the answer to either, and I think I'm going to ask you to check that with your FNP.
Yeah, they will definitely know.
They will definitely know what happens, but I'm afraid once we discharge you, we know very little about what goes on.
Don't ask me anything on weaning. That is definitely know nothing about that. Okay. Adina, is the bleeding going on even with a C-section? Yes, it's exactly the same. So there is not really any difference in your bleeding with regards to your mode of birth. So you'll still need to expel all the blood that was in your uterus, and you just still need to perform the same actions it needs to do regardless of how you've given birth. Hello, how long mum and newborn are staying in the hospital after labour? That is probably a very, very big question. And
how long's a piece of string?
But what I will say is that the midwife who looks after you in labour and anyone who looks after you in recovery will constantly tell you what the plan is. So they will be able to give you an estimated time of discharge. And that can even that conversation can happen when you come in, depending on your risk factors. So please do keep asking anyone who's assessing you and looking after you, and we'll be able to sort of give you an estimate. Marissa, can you take naproxen after birth? I have endometriosis and really worried about the pain of bleeding after birth. I'm assuming that's to do with breastfeeding, and there's very few drugs that are contraindicated with breastfeeding.
But what I would suggest you do is, could we ask you to ask that a question again when the infant feeding team are here? Because they have a big encyclopedia of all the drugs and their effects during breastfeeding. So they are the experts and will be able to answer that really accurately.
Yeah, definitely. But definitely a good question. Relika, hi, when we get home, do we need to call our midwife to inform her we had our baby and we're home, or will she be informed? That's a really good question, actually. So we do a digital discharge. So we do it all on our computers. And what we do is we email it in a way to the community team that you're under. And every morning around 7 or 8 a.m, they'll check this inbox for all the discharges that have happened the day before. What we tell you on your day of your discharge, what a level 5 midwife will tell you, or any midwife, will say if you've not heard anything, so no phone call, no visit, by sort of 3 p.m. that day, then you should make contact with your community team. So sometimes things do slip through the net, sometimes the computers go down, sometimes we don't forward the discharge on that we're meant to. So that next day, that first whole day that you're home, do chase a community team if you've not heard from them in the afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I can't really see them.
I can read them out. That's okay. Haley, I think she was just replying to Yvonne, so it's nice to see that. Carla, no problem. Don't worry about asking another question. I'm currently taking Pregnacare Original. Should I then take Pregnacare Breastfeeding after less than 12? This is a really good question.
That is a really good question. I think they are the same dose of vitamin D.
You can get Sainsbury's own, Tesco own.
So I think if you've got a supply left, finish taking the supply you've got and then make the decision. But just check what the dosages on both packets are. I think they're exactly the same.
And you definitely don't need branded.
Yeah.
It's just, you're paying for the label.
I take vitamin D as an older woman and I buy mine from Aldi's because it's the cheapest place to get them, and they are exactly the same as if you buy something with a big posh fancy name.
So this actually leads on nicely to Marissa's question, who's saying, any vitamins you recommend after birth apart from vitamin D? No, just vitamin D.
No, but if you're going to do your little shopping list, it would be a good idea to get some paracetamol in for after you've had your baby, and maybe some ibuprofen, so that you've got them there ready.
Oh, so Marissa was just clarifying that naproxen was related to NSAIDs and bleeding contraindications. So not that I know of, but again, when you come in, your obstetrician will have to prescribe it on your drug chart anyway, and that's when they'd be able to talk to you about any contraindications. I have known of one woman resuming her naproxen postnatally, but definitely an individual risk assessment would need to be done for that. I think we have got one question left.
This will be our last question, because then we'll be
So do we need to bring our own GD kit and fragment? Yes, please bring your GD kit. So please bring any equipment you've got for monitoring your own sugars, as that's really, really useful postnatally in particular, as we might not be able to come to your bed when you need to have that sugar, and it might be more convenient for you to do it. And you can also still upload them to the app as well. You don't need to write them, just as you would have normally antenatally. Your fragment, no, we will give that from our own supply. It might be good to bring all of your medications with you so we can see what you've been on antenatally. But medications like fragment, we will just give from our ward stock, so that's fine. And you can still give it yourself though if you want. We just watch. Oh, hang on, there might be another one.
Right, one more, and then we're going to be out of time.
We've been trying to get out of paracetamol for weeks. So what we can do in that situation is we are prescribing it as a take-home medication from the ward. We're not trying to do it for everybody because it is about £5 a packet if we prescribe it from the ward, compared to sort of 30p, 50p.
And I know your problem, because I've been trying to get hold of supplies for my mother-in-law, and I would say in the last week things seem to be improving. So hopefully, but if
we'll send you home with a packet. If
you'll be okay if you can't get them, don't worry.
I think, yeah.
That's about it, isn't it?
I think, yeah. Please, if you've got any more questions, definitely send them on to the MVP Facebook page, and I know they will send them our way, and that's absolutely fine. Wendy Randall should be able to answer any of them as well.
Okay, good luck.
Yes, good luck.
All right,
Hope
take care.
Number 5.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.